Hi, my name is Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and I proudly represent the 2nd Congressional District in the state of Illinois. Today I'm going to read a book entitled Exquisite. It's the poetry and life of Gwendolyn Brooks by Suzanne Slade and illustrated by Cosby A. Cabrera. Gwendolyn grew up in the big city of Chicago with little money to spare. Yet her family owned great treasure, a bookcase filled with precious poems. Each night, her father read fine poetry aloud, passionate and proud. Nothing sounded sweeter to Gwendolyn than father's deep voice reciting the rhythmic words. Gwendolyn memorized those lines, fine words in time, to share with her big hugging aunts. When she was 7, Gwendolyn began arranging words into poems of her own. One day, her mother found those scribbly lines and announced with sincere conviction, as mothers do when making a prediction, "You are going to be the Lady Paul Laurence Dunbar." Gwendolyn beamed. He was her favorite poet. Gwendolyn loved to sit on her big back porch with colorful clouds dancing overhead and dream about her future. I was at my happiest sitting out on the back porch to sit there and look out at the western sky with all those beautiful changing clouds and just to dream about the future, which was going to be ecstatically exquisite like those clouds. Writing became like eating and breathing to Gwendolyn. It was something she just had to do. She carefully strung words together like elegant jewels in perfect meter and time. Her rhythmic lines describe paper dolls and tick-tock clocks, raindrops, sunsets, and climbing rocks. She poured her poems into notebooks, filled them to the very tops. Her room became a swelling sea of poems. When Gwendolyn turned 11, she decided to set her words free and mailed 4 prize poems to a newspaper. Her words were printed on crisp paper for the whole neighborhood to see. Elated, she sent her nature poem event-tide to a magazine. It appeared on shiny pages for the entire country to read. Gwendolyn's future seemed as bright as morning's first clouds, but then a terrible storm blew in, the Great Depression. With too few jobs for too many workers, her father's pay was cut in half. Dinner each night was the same, beans. Hungry for food, yet more hungry for words, Gwendolyn kept writing. She sent more poems to magazines, but they were all rejected. In high school, Gwendolyn felt rejected too. She was too quiet and shy for some crowds, her skin too dark for others. Every year she tried a different school, all white, all black, and a mix of both, but she didn't seem to fit in anywhere.
My name is Bonnie Mathias, and I am the coordinator of the Illinois Center for the Book, a programming arm of the Illinois State Library, a department of the Illinois Secretary of State's office. We are based out of the Illinois State Library's Gwendolyn Brooks building in Springfield, Illinois, and we were incorporated as the 3rd affiliate of the Center for the Book in the Library of Congress. Before we get started with our interview, I'd like to offer special appreciation to U.S. Congresswoman Robin Kelly for her book selection, Exquisite, The Poetry and Life of Gwendolyn Brooks. It is written by the ever-prolific Illinois children's author Suzanne Slade and illustrated by Illinois' own remarkably talented artist, Cosby A. Cabrera. You two are some busy women, and I love it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, hectic schedules to be with us here today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you
So you
for
guys
having
ready
us.
to get into interview questions?
Thanks,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Okay. Well, the first question I have for you both today is, when did you know you were going to become an author or an illustrator?
Well, I can lead off, I guess. I was a huge reader growing up. Always joined the summer reading club at my local library, bring home stacks of books and read. But I never enjoyed writing in school. In fact, it was my least favorite subject. My favorite subjects were science and math. I think part of that was because in science and math, you kind of know when you have the right answer, right? But in writing, when the teacher would say, write a paper, I could think of so many different ways to write something. I wasn't sure what was the best way. But anyway, fast forward in college, I studied engineering, became a mechanical engineer. And it wasn't until I was a mother reading picture books to my 2 young children that I fell back in love with children's books, which I had always loved, and decided I would like to give it a try, to try writing them. But I had a lot to learn, which led to classes at a local college, conferences, joining many critique groups. And so really it was after I became a mom that I wanted to become an author.
And yeah, and similarly to Suzanne, I would always collect picture books that I was attracted to as an adult, way before my daughter came along. But I started off my writing illustrating journey through illustrating, you know, I studied industrial design in high school, but I went to one of the high schools of science in New York. And so all of my science teachers were urging me to continue in the sciences. And my art teachers were noticing that I had something special and they were urging me to continue in the arts. And so that was a sort of like real point of tension. And I started off as a pre-med major. And after year 2, I noticed that I was like illustrating for the Black Campus newspaper and doing all these things. And so I decided I was going to leave that path. And a professor of mine arranged for 2 internships for me. And in one of those internships, this woman from Zimbabwe would say to me every day, Cosby, you must apply to Parsons. And I picked up an application just to get Ona off of my back, as I say, and then headed off to Paris, the Parsons in Paris, and wound up finishing in New York. And so yeah, and so I would turn in illustrations, a great many of them, you know, for different book projects. And it was one editor who then asked me, "Do you have stories?" And I thought, how on earth would she ever guess that I had stories, you know, because I was what we call a secret writer.
And I'm a huge Gwendolyn Brooks fan. I adore her poetry. And there were no picture books about Gwendolyn at the time. And then in 2013, my son was attending University of Illinois, and there was a big poster, a big sign up that U of I had acquired her handwritten poetry journals. The journals that Gwendolyn wrote as a child. Here's one little bookmarks they had showing in the rare books library that they had acquired this. And I thought, wow, you know, as an author, when you can get a primary source, I could get access to those journals, that just sparked my imagination even more about what I could do to share Gwendolyn's life with young readers. So I immediately contacted this rare book library at U of I, and they said the collection's not ready yet. You can't access it yet. So then I took off on my research journey, which those are always fun and exciting, and I read her 2 autobiographies, Gwendolyn's 2 autobiographies, just to get a feel for her thoughts, her life, and lots of interviews. And then there was one particular interview in a 1968 Ebony magazine where Gwendolyn talked about, as a young girl, she would sit out in her backyard and look up at the clouds. She really liked watching clouds. And she said, I used to watch those clouds and dream about how my future would be ecstatically exquisite, just like those clouds. And right there, I knew from Gwendolyn's own words, the title of the book, Exquisite. And I wanted to put in a theme of clouds. And so really Gwendolyn's words inspired and got this story on its journey. Of course, then the writer's journey is many, many revisions. You can see here we've got with many different titles and subtitles. But that's how it all started in 2013, was seeing that the poetry journals had been acquired at U of I.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Now, Cosby, where did you pull your inspiration from to create your beautiful illustrations for the book?
Yeah. So like after Suzanne was so careful about preparing her research notes, I don't even know if I had shared this with Suzanne. It's like I literally didn't glance at them. I parked them because I wanted to begin my own research journey to kind of pick and pull to see what might have inspired me in her life, her life's story. And then I used Suzanne's notes to cross-reference as opposed to relying solely on her notes. And so I actually did take a trip into the University of Illinois, and went through her archives I understand what you say, Bonnie, when you say that the library oozes with her presence. She really does have that kind of effect, like going through her things and, seeing her handwriting and the very notebooks and journals that she, held in her very hands. And one thing that I couldn't that sort of struck me, I should say, is that she used, and I pictured her maybe even sitting in her bed by the night light, or the night lamp late at night reading, and like pouring through her books and observing that a lot of her bookmarks were like these clean facial tissues that she might have like plucked out of a box and, inserted there to mark her page. But all of that was there. And I could really sense, something of her that I wanted to bring into the story. And, it's like there are the things that we see, the things that we don't see, that oftentimes there isn't language for it. It's more of a feeling. And I wanted to capture that in the visuals as well.
Is there anything else you guys would like to share before we sign off?
Well, I just want to thank you, Bonnie, for inviting Cosby and I to talk about Exquisite, and for sharing the book with your young readers throughout the state of Illinois. And you want to share a little bit about the book reading that's available, or maybe they know about that?
Yeah, they know about that. And in this video will be merged with that. So all of that will be together on the Library of Congress website. So that'll be really nice together.
Oh, thanks for having us, Bonnie. Yeah,
Oh,
thanks for the honor.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And I want to thank you guys again for being here with us today and taking the time out of your schedules. I mean, this has just been wonderful. And I think it always helps everyone to see what is involved with writing and illustrating of books, especially for children. It's just always been a soft spot of mine. And the fact that the Library of Congress is wanting to keep programs going for children's books and that, and here at the State Library and the Illinois Center for the Book, it is a big push for us. So I just want to remind everybody, Exquisite, got our Illinois authors sticker here, and just want to remind everybody to read around the states. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys later.